Julian Melo and the Darién lab. Colonel Julian Melo was involved in the construction of the Darién lab. He has told me that he was trapped into becoming the fall guy for other Panamanians, Rabi Blancos, including the Tribaldos, Mendez, and Barletta families, and I tend to believe him. As an officer in the Panamanian Defense Forces, he was someone we would call un vivo, a wise guy, a live wire, always involved in everything. Within the National Guard under Torrijos, he had occasional disciplinary problems because of his style, and was punished by being sent to be military attaché in Colombia. It was easy for him to make friends there. He was able to develop contacts without trouble, which is what being an attaché is all about. He did his work well. He had studied in Colombia and knew the place. Melo claims that he was entrapped and lured into the drug business by a group of wealthy financiers of the cocaine trade in Colombia, notably by Ricardo Tribaldos, who ended up testifying at the drug trial against me. Melo became friendly with Tribaldos and his family while in Colombia. He sometimes assisted them when they had financial trouble or other problems, but always within the bounds of the law, whether in obtaining contracts or in other business dealings. But the Tribaldos family had other types of business as well. They had gotten into drug dealing with the Medellin cartel and laundering their profits in Panama. Melo says that he was an unwitting accomplice in the construction of the Darién laboratory, and again, this is plausible. Basically, Tribaldos was asked by his Medellin benefactors if he could use his contacts in Panama to guarantee and protect the construction of a processing facility on the Panamanian side of the border with Colombia. Tribaldos said he could, but that Panama was asking $4 million in protection money. I never had any involvement with this. Melo agreed, saying he was the contact for Tribaldos. While admitting involvement, he said he never got the money either. Melo also asked the Medellin cartel to have me assassinated while in Europe in July 1984. Even Tribaldos acknowledged that when he testified. He said that he was the one holding the money, and he was the one who told Melo that he had been paid. Tribaldos was the true point of contact with the Medellin cartel, duping them into believing they had paid $4 million for protection. While Tribaldos did testify at the trial, Melo did not, interestingly enough. The federal prosecutors, Michael Sullivan and Miles Malman, secretly flew Melo into Miami, went quietly to the hotel room they had reserved for him, and had a long talk. They found out, to their dismay, that he wanted to tell the truth. To their horror, Melo gave a completely different version of things, one which ran counter to the prosecution strategy. Noriega knew nothing about it, said Melo. Tribaldos and I worked alone. We hid it from him. This didn't help the prosecution, so they turned on him. We don't want to hear this. Tell the real story, they demanded. That is, a version of events that would help their case. Melo refused. The prosecutors were so threatening that he expected to be dragged off to jail at any moment. Sullivan and Malman walked out, stripped him of his spending money, and left him holding a hotel bill without money of his own. They realized that Melo would eventually be in touch with me, and that meant they had to reveal to the court and to my lawyers that he was in town. The law said that they were duty-bound to inform us of the meeting. They did so not out of duty, but out of fear that they would be caught if they did not. So Rubino went to see Melo at his hotel room. He told Rubino that General Rubén Darío Paredes had tried to coax him into testifying as part of a plea bargain for his son, Ahmet, who was also accused by the Americans. They wanted me to testify against the general, but I refused, said Melo, visibly shaken. But he also refused to testify for the defense. The government intimidation job had its effect. He fled the United States, never to return, fearful that they would take reprisals against him for not playing along. He preferred to flee rather than face an indictment himself. Topping off Melo's treatment, the prosecutors contended that our military system treated Melo leniently after the discovery of the Darién lab, and this proved that we were a den of drug dealers. Actually, when the general staff saw the evidence, Melo confessed that he was working with the Medellin cartel. The Panamanian Defense Forces levied the maximum sanction against the disgraced colonel. He was dismissed from the armed forces, forfeited his rank, salary, and benefits, and was permanently banned from the military. Hardly a light punishment, as the prosecution called it, in trying to show that I was an ally of Melo in some drug scheme. As with everything else, the prosecutors compared our laws with U.S. laws and said they were insufficient. The fact was that Panama did not have a code of military justice, as does the United States, so there were no court-martials. It was interesting to hear the prosecution talk about the lack of a Panamanian court-martial before the uninformed jury, ignorant of Panamanian law, as if Panamanian law itself were on trial. We also remanded the case to the Panama Attorney General. Melo and those associated with him were placed under house arrest. Tribaldos and his other co-conspirators also were arrested. The investigation showed that the laboratory itself had not been built yet. What our men found was a construction site, installations, an electrical facility, hammocks for the workers, but nothing of substance. No ether, no cocaine paste, nothing at all. There were only the inference and the deduction that someone was developing cocaine installations there. Ironically, Melo and Tribaldos chose Panamanian attorney Herman Delgado as their lawyer. Delgado managed to win a dismissal of the civil case. He had experience handling cocaine cases. He was also the law partner of Guillermo Andara, later to be sworn in legally as president of Panama at a U.S. military installation, overseen by his U.S. protectors on the night of the U.S. invasion of Panama. Delgado and Andara, by the way, helped form a shell corporation in Panama for Willie Falcon and Sal Magluta, who were allegedly the biggest drug dealers ever caught in Miami. Andara was listed as an officer of the shell corporation for Falcon and Magluta. After being named president in 1989, Andara, in consultation with Delgado and the Bush administration, denied any wrongdoing, saying he didn't know they were drug dealers. The men negotiated for immunity with the prosecution through their attorney, David Rosen of Miami. But Andara's activities were a matter of public record. Panama had become a narco-democracy. The nation's new president, Guillermo Andara, has for years been a director of one of the Panamanian banks used by Colombia's drug traffickers, reported the International Herald Tribune on February 7, 1990. Guillermo Billy Ford, the second vice president and chairman of the Banking Commission, is part owner of the Dadeland Bank of Florida, which was named in a court case 2 years ago as a central financial institution for one of the biggest Medellin money launderers, Gonzalo Mora. Rogelio Cruz, the new attorney general, has been a director and lawyer of the First Inter-Americas Bank, owned by Gilberto Rodriguez Orejuela, one of the bosses of the Cali cartel, with Jose Santa Cruz Londono in Colombia. The Spanish paper El País said on October 26, 1990, that Andara was linked to at least 3 companies that worked with Interbanco, a bank investigated by the DEA for drug trafficking. This connection presents a problem for the president because the DEA has charged Interbanco with laundering drug money. That was not the only reference that linked Andara to criminal activity. On August 19, 1994, La Estrella de Panamá carried a front-page story headlined, "Andara is a criminal." It quoted an accusation by the president of the Panamanian Parliament, Arturo Vallarino, who said that the method in which Andara approved government contract franchises was illegal. We have to come to the conclusion that the man serving as president is a criminal. We can't permit the theft of millions of dollars in public money because of these franchises. El Nuevo Herald, the Spanish-language edition of the Miami Herald, explained in an article on August 20, 1994, that Andara was giving these contracts to companies that he represented. It also quoted Vallarino as saying that the public knows and realizes that the president is really behind the million-dollar contracts. On December 20, 1994, the 5th anniversary of the invasion of Panama, La Estrella also reported that Andara, who by that time had left office after the election of Ernesto Perez Valladares, paid thousands of dollars a month to members of his family from government funds. His mother-in-law, Carolino Diaz de Chen, had a salary of $5,000 a month. The daughter of the ex-president, Marcela Andara de Yap, received $3,000 a month. His son-in-law, Javier Yap, received $2,500 a month, and his sister-in-law, Mara Diaz, received about $900 per month.